Hey everybody, I'm Sierra.
And I'm Ben.
And welcome back to another episode of The Unsolved Couple, where every week Ben and I break down one of your original gateway drugs into true crime.
Unsolved Mysteries.
I feel like I said that intro weird, but maybe I didn't.
You said it different.
Yeah, I feel like I don't have it written down anywhere, so it's just muscle memory. And so I think I said that backwards or just different than I normally do.
You did.
But
you
that's
threw
all right.
me off. I almost had to leave.
You almost had to walk out.
I almost was like, listen, I can't do this.
I can't work in these conditions.
I can't work in these conditions. Like, you guys changing things on me all the time.
That's
and you
so
expect me to just go with the flow.
Just make it work.
I'll be in the green room.
I'm back from CrimeCon, really, in real life this time.
Officially this time?
Yeah.
Because you lied to the people last week.
I didn't lie. But I was also welcoming any new listeners because that episode dropped. Yeah.
Do we want to talk about the awkward moment?
What awkward moment?
Never mind then.
Wait, what moment?
In our last week's episode.
Oh, only so many people got to listen to that part. Yeah. If you know what we're talking about, last week I was because I edited the podcast the day I drove home, I think, or the day after. I can't remember.
It's the day after you got
Day
back.
after I got home. And I literally just checked our numbers, made sure that our voices, like the volume sounded okay, and edited out some of our breath noises, like the bare minimum, and went to bed. And normally Ben and I are pretty good about noting things
taking notes of things that need to be cut out.
Yeah. And there was a part where there was just an incident that if you've been married before, Ben felt very comfortable in the podcasting room and I called him out on it. And
because I assumed it would be edited out.
The best part is I asked you, is there anything you remember?
I didn't remember.
Well, you remembered it when you called me and said, Sierra, you forgot to cut this part. But
I remember.
Welcome. We have an independent podcast and sometimes.
Welcome that there is editing.
Yeah. And that we're very amateur at what we do. Especially me. I've had to teach myself how to edit. And I have a feeling that if a professional editor sat down.
I can't even put this on you because you do all the editing. So it's not.
No, and I think if a professional editor sat down and watched how I did it, it would drive them crazy because they'd be like, you're not doing it correctly.
All right.
No, I'm back from CrimeCon.
Let's get to the real thing that you went to CrimeCon.
I had a great time.
Didn't invite me. I would have went.
Yeah.
She didn't want me there.
Okay.
She said, you're not allowed
I said girls only.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no, I would definitely not have come. Anyways.
No, I'm hoping you come to Orlando, but
about CrimeCon.
It was a great experience. If anyone's ever gone before, you already know. If you haven't been before and you're on the fence, please consider coming, whether you are a creator or just a lover of true crime. It was 3 days filled with amazing speakers and classes and interactions with people from all different walks of life within the true crime community. I met victims' family members. I met advocacy groups that are out there advocating for change. I met DNA experts. I met people. I took a class about the guy that's prosecuted the most no body cases and sharing his expertise. And I did talk to Chris Hansen twice. The first time I walked up to him and
How was Chris Hansen?
He was very kind. Because
I've actually heard he's a super nice guy.
I walked up to him and I was like, excuse me, are you Chris Hansen? I don't know why I asked him if he was Chris Hansen or not, because he was.
Honestly, I didn't recognize him, but I don't know him very well.
Yeah. And so I talked to him briefly and then I walked away and I didn't get a picture. And then, of course, literally the last day of CrimeCon, as I was leaving the convention center, he was in the hallway of the hotel. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Can I grab a picture with you real quick? Very kind, very generous with his time. I saw Nancy Grace speak. She spoke about the Nancy Guthrie case. That, she has a lot of thoughts and opinions on that. That was actually a big topic of conversation while we were down there. I met Joe, Gabby Petito's dad, who was down there doing advocacy work. I met tons of people that are out there. There was a lot of people there with a loved one's story if it's not getting any attention. And while I know that that is something that happens in missing persons or unsolved cases, it was a very different experience sitting there hearing from a mom or a dad or a sister or a niece or a son or a brother who has a loved one that one day just didn't come home or was found deceased and they don't know what happened and no one's listening to them. So I came home with a really I had a light bulb moment while I was there, and I might cut some of this just because I'm kind of just talking off the top of my head. Unsolved Mysteries, while we call it the original gateway drug into true crime, yes, that is true. It was one of the first, that at least I know of its kind, that put information out to the public and asked for help. And I know now today in the true crime world, and for good reason, a lot of creators get called out for being exploitive, because a lot of them are. And people that even consume true crime get called out for being weird or liking to hear these stories about some of these people's most terrible moments of their lives. But then I'm reminded, there is a huge resource available by putting these people's stories out there, by having these conversations. In fact, the Gabby Petito case was solved because some hikers who listened and watched true crime sources saw the van and called in a tip. And how many stories from Unsolved Mysteries have we talked about? And then I ran into a group of 4 detectives who are all active working detectives, a part of a police station, who got some funding and permission to start a podcast. And they do 3 or 4 cases a year where they sit down as detectives and share what they can and get these stories out there, because somebody knows something. No crime goes uncommitted where people haven't shared about it, bragged about it, had a change in behavior. And Othram, the DNA ancestry, mega house, the guy that him and his wife, I believe, started it, he is a genius when it comes to understanding and decoding DNA. He has a slogan. It's called unsolved crime is a choice. It is a choice because people are choosing to not reopen these cases, whether it's people that know something and don't say anything, they're trying to protect a loved one, lazy detective work, I don't know, there was victims there was law enforcement there was every color of the spectrum, and it was such a well orchestrated and organized event. So that's I would love to do a whole episode just on kind of talking about CrimeCon, but it's going to be in Orlando. It's going to be in the fall of 2027.
Why don't you tell us about something fun that happened instead of just all the bad?
Well, I had lots of fun while I was there. I got to meet up with, we call it the true crime chat, made it out of the chat. There's a group of women that I'm friends with that all have independent podcasts, all victim very focused, all out there trying to share stories and put good into the world. We spent most of the weekend together, cross-promoting each other's podcasts, sharing, doing silly things. We dressed up as the Sandlot for the 90s kickoff party. We went out to dinner one night, all dressed up, and the theme was sparkle. And if you can get on my Instagram, you can see it. I am dressed head to toe in a purple glitter outfit. And it's a 3-piece suit, and I'm decked out in glitter. And so there was a lot of goofing off, a lot of laughter, a lot of things like that. So yeah, it was a great event. I 10 out of 10 would recommend anyone getting a chance to go to it to come.
10 out of 10?
It was great. I had a great time. Yeah.
All right. You guys heard it.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
And
Must
fingers crossed,
see TV.
Ben will be with us next year, because
that's not going to happen.
If we get onto Creator Row, Ben has to come because I'll need his help.
Nope.
Doing the heavy lifting. You are not going to leave me high and dry. If anyone knows me and Ben in real life, or even just through the podcast, knows that Ben would not abandon me if it was important to me. So if we get on Creator Row, Ben will be there.
Peace out.
I'm already designing our stickers for Orlando. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, that's my. And Ben had a good time here holding down the fort?
Heck yeah, bro.
Yeah. Okay.
Gotta hang out at home.
So now
all
that I've
weekend.
talked for probably way too long about CrimeCon,
I knew it was gonna happen.
he knew it was
It was inevitable.
coming. Yeah. We are recapping season 4, episode 24. And I'm getting excited to wrap up season 4. Can I tell you why?
Yes.
Okay. From my research, and I told you about this a few weeks ago, there's been 2 or 3 other podcasts about recapping Unsolved Mysteries and giving updates. And everyone I talked to at CrimeCon that hadn't heard of our podcast
Thought it
was
a
like,
great idea.
this is an amazing idea. Why haven't I heard of you? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm working my butt off. I don't know why you haven't heard of me. So share it with a friend. But nobody from my research, unless they've taken you can delete a podcast, has made it past season 4. Lots of podcasts have covered different cases and highlighted and featured things, but no one has done what we have done and made it past season 4. And I can understand it. This is a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of energy. And
so what you're saying is we're about to be done.
No, I'm excited to break through that next level and break it into season 5.
The glass ceiling.
We're breaking the glass ceiling.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So season 4, episode 24, we got 4 stories for you. And I will start you out.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have anything to share with our friends before I get started? Okay.
Negative.
8:15, November 13th, 1991. A chilling call comes into the Vallejo, California Police Department. A Loomis driver had pulled in to the Loomis Armored Incorporated warehouse in Vallejo.
I forgot what stories you had.
Yeah, this is
one is a wild story.
It is a wild story. And witnessed a man tied up on the floor. Normally, drivers drop off money collected on their runs at the warehouse for deposits in banks. Patrol cars immediately rolled into the scene. And the reenactment is great because they go in, lights out. Is there a special term for that in the world of law enforcement when you roll in, lights out?
Yes.
What's it called?
Lights out.
Oh. Man, you guys are you so thankful that we've got some insider scoop here? Okay, so they go in, lights out per the reenactment.
I mean, I guess you could call it stealth if you wanted, but
or blackout mode. I don't know.
We just call it lights out.
You go in and lights out. And there's a reason why you do that, right? You want to go in as subtly as possible because you don't know what you're going into. I will also note that both Ben and I recognize that one of the reenactment actors, which very well could be a police officer at the time in the Vallejo Police Department, was jacked. Like that guy had to at least be 6'3", maybe more. And he looked like The Rock. He looked like he was going to rip out of his shirt.
He had to be pushing like 260.
He
all muscle.
Was buff as can be.
He was huge.
Yeah. His gun looked tiny in his hands. Like that's how big he looked in the reenactment. So I don't know who that guy is, but nod to you.
But what?
But nod to you. So as the police made their approach, they see a security door on the main building was partially opened, which is probably not a good sign. And a bag of money lays near the entrance. Criminals seem to forget how heavy money is, and we're going to put a pin in that. We're going to get to that later. The officers move cautiously because they're not aware if someone is still in the building. They don't know what they're coming into. Inside, though, police would discover that this was far more than a simple robbery. We've covered a few armored truck robberies before. I think this might be the first one that includes a murder at the same time. We had the one that guy put a bomb on the car that really wasn't a bomb.
That's the one I was thinking of. I can't remember.
The guy that worked for the company who you did the update on where he was actually deceased in Florida.
Yeah, but he just stole it from like the company. But he didn't like do an armored truck heist. The guys that did the bomb on the hood.
Armored car heist, yeah.
I can't remember if they
think anyone
killed anyone or hurt anyone.
No.
But I could be wrong. I'd have to go back and look.
So just beyond the door, unfortunately, a security guard laid dead. He had been bound with rope and then shot through the head. In another part of the building, police end up finding 2 more guards. One was dead and the other was mortally wounded. He died later in the hospital due to his injuries. All 3 men had been shot in the head and their hands tied behind their back. The guards were identified as Martin McCumber, Dennis Jacobson, and Aposhino Levetto. I'm probably saying those wrong. They were from the Vallejo area. Martin had left behind a wife of nearly 20 years and 4 stepchildren. He had worked for Loomis for 11 years. Afendo was also engaged to be married within the next 6 months, and he had switched to the night shift in order to make enough money to cover his wedding cost and to pay for a new house after he got married. So Detective Bob comes in, and Detective Bob would later go on to be the mock-up for a cartoon character known as Fix-It Felix.
He sounded like him.
And looks just like Fix-It Felix.
Here's the thing, we're not making fun. He was a very good detective. He's a very good detective.
And Fix-It Felix is a hero in my book. He's one of my favorite underappreciated characters in Disney movies.
I love the Wreck-It Ralph movies.
I know, so do I.
The first one is great.
If you just heard his voice.
Yeah, if your eyes are closed and you heard his voice, or you would just think of that actor that does the Fix-It Felix.
And then if you saw him, he looks like the cartoon character of Fix-It Felix. But Detective Bob Sampayan said that this case would ever be stuck because this was a brutal attack. The police were surprised to find that the killers had also left behind an abundance of physical evidence. There is no shortage of evidence in this case. So they are hoping that someone is able to identify these people based on the things that we know. So immediately after the police units had secured the crime scene, the detectives are called in, and they look inside numerous duffel bags that are left behind inside the building. They find a pair of shoes, which were exclusively sold at Target, tools, and they talk about a really weird thing that's left behind, which we're actually not going to really get any more information on. It's a thing of lighter fluid. But they shared it on Unsolved Mysteries, I think, because it was like handwritten what the price was on it, hoping to say someone like, oh, I sold that to somebody, or that was sold exclusively here.
Well, yeah, it's a bottle.
It's a big bottle of lighter fluid.
Someone took a Sharpie and wrote the price.
Like $1.62,
which means that
tax.
it was most likely sold at like a mom and pop shop.
Yeah, a smaller convenience store.
So I think they were trying to say like, oh yeah, hey, we sell that.
Yeah.
And, maybe narrow that down.
And, they talk about it's a mystery. There's no reason why they'd have lighter fluid at the heist, but it's there. And so far, they haven't been able to match any of these shoes or random items found at the heist and the murder scene to any one or any particular thing in the area. They're also surprised to find that the murder weapon is left behind. It goes to show that the men who committed this crime were idiots. They left behind an 8-inch steel Colt Trooper, and it is a .357 Magnum revolver that had been reported. Are you laughing at me because I totally don't know what any of that means? It's just
I just like that you said a .357. It's just a 357.
It's just a 357 Magnum revolver that had been reported as lost or stolen in Los Angeles approximately back in 1969. So this crime was committed in 1991. So this gun had been missing for a long time. It's funny, we were watching this with one of our kids in the room, and they were like, oh, are you supposed to report if a gun is you can't find it, it goes missing? I think to children, when something goes missing, which probably happens a lot when you're a kid, the thought that you have to report it to the police doesn't make sense to them because technically no crime was committed. It wasn't stolen that you know of. And it's like, yeah, And this is exactly why, because guns here in the United States are traceable with serial numbers. And when you buy a gun, there's a record of who owns that. So yeah, you have to report it as missing or lost or stolen, because if it's used in the commission of a crime, someone's going to show up at your door. So by the next morning, the FBI shows up and more evidence is discovered. Inside the compound, investigators find an orange duffel bag stuffed with hundreds of thousands of dollars inside. Nearby, they find the deadbolt cutters that had been used to break through the wire fence. The investigators also travel along the fence line and locate a pair of gloves. They find where the hole was cut in the fence. They find ski masks, more gloves, camouflage, fatigue clothing. They find another large bag with an abundance of currency in it, appeared all to have been ditched and abandoned. So I think we're going to find out later that eventually every penny is almost recovered. There's like nothing that ends up actually being stolen.
I think they say all the money was recovered.
Was recovered, yeah. And at a park across the street, investigators find an additional pair of gloves, ski mask, and an AK-47 assault rifle. They also find an impression in the ground that lead them to believe that the killers actually laid in wait in the area for some time after the crime, hoping that the police would leave and then they could finish their escape. Judging from the evidence, authorities theorized that there was at least 4 robbers. There was hair samples found on the ski mask that would indicate that one of them was white and that one of them was African American. Eyewitnesses would later confirm that to be the case. Exactly 1 week to the hour after the murders, which I actually thought this was really smart, authorities set up a roadblock near the armored car facility, hoping to find people who might travel that route regularly. Because this is at nighttime. So maybe people coming and going from a late shift at work. And they talk to people who drive this area and find that a white male was seen run north from the building around 9 p.m. on the 13th. A black man was also seen around the same time running north on a different street. Working backwards, authorities began to piece together what had likely happened on the night of the murders. At approximately 8 p.m., 4 heavily armed men dressed in combat fatigue approached the building, cut through the fence. One security guard was on duty inside. 40 minutes later, 2 other guards arrived transporting a significant amount of cash. The thing to note here is that only a handful of people would have known that this cash deposit was going to be where it was when it was. It happened pretty regularly, but it didn't happen often, and it happened on a very set schedule. That's going to be important.
Maybe an inside job.
They make radio contact with the guard inside the building who is stationed in a lookout booth called the turret room. He's the one that actually opens up the outer gates to let them in. Several Loomis trucks are parked inside of the fence that provides the killers easy access to hide between the vehicles and would have not been visible to the guard inside the lookout turret room. Once the truck driver arrived, the security door began to open. It would have been possible for the killers to enter the facility, coming underneath, opening the door quickly before the guards even had a chance to respond. It is believed that the killers approached the guards as they left the truck, held him as hostage, ordering the guard to exit the turret room. It is believed that as he did, thinking that he would save the lives of his friends, once the guards were overpowered, they bound the killers and focused their attention on the truck. They went through the money and placed it in duffel bags and then shot, killing the guards. The FBI agent notes that there's no reason for the guards to have actually been killed other than for the possibility that they could identify the men who were heavily masked. And that led them to speculate that one of the guards, Ben has knocked the mic like 17 times. Are you good over there?
Okay, it's been twice. And it was muted.
On whether or not the guards likely knew one of the people committing the crime. Maybe he had identifiable voice, identifiable stance, tattoos, who knows? But that it is likely that the FBI is believing the reason that these men ended up dead was because they would have been able to identify the robber. When the killers fired their guns, this is actually what set off the alarm. I had never heard of this before.
I actually thought this was genius.
I had never heard of this. Had you ever heard of an alarm like this?
No.
Yeah.
I actually have not.
And while you did not work in high-end security, you did work in...
Yeah, nothing like this. So I wouldn't have known anything
but you did
like
work
this.
in surveillance of some sort.
Yeah. but for a place that can most likely be robbed, obviously a gunshot is extremely loud, and that sound does not.
Trucks driving into like an armored.
Yeah, but it is not the same.
Yeah, it is a very different pitch.
I'm going to guess that alarm only goes off when certain decibels hit, and especially in an enclosed building.
It's very loud. If you've ever heard a gun go off inside a building, it's very loud.
Yeah, that sound set the alarm.
Yeah, and this building was a compound, so it would have been concrete. It would have echoed a lot. So yeah, due to an interior alarm inside the Loomis building, when a gunshot goes off, it sets off a hidden alarm within the security, immediately alerting police. So they believe that at that point, they grabbed the bags, but not having realized how heavy money is, that they could not actually carry the money and flee the scene at the same time. Each bag weighed about 90 pounds. So despite the blaring alarm, the killers fled technically scot-free. They didn't get any money, but they took 3 lives with them when they left. The stark irony is they went in there for money. There was millions available, left with none, but committed a much more serious crime. So the police are really adamant that this case should be solved because these weren't just guards guarding money. They had wives, children, girlfriends, parents.
These were assassinations.
And that multiple lives had been permanently impacted, and that nothing can be done to undo what happened to these families. But the closest thing that they can do as members of law enforcement is to help solve the crime. And it is suspected that at least one of the victims may have at least known one of the killers. If not, then they were likely assassinated for zero reasoning. And that's kind of where Unsolved Mysteries leaves us.
All right. Update.
Okay. Mostly solved. March 1993, a 23-year-old man named Thomas Young was arrested by the ATF on firearms charges. And then in November, police matched fingerprints found at the crime scene to him. November 26, he actually confesses to the robbery and murders. He admitted killing 2 of the guards, but also told the police that the other 3 men were involved are a man named Eugene Livingston and a man named James Gary Brown, who has since changed his name to Asad Dubai Mudabi. I'm going to guess he became Muslim in prison and has changed his name, but at the time he was James Gary Brown. And another man named Victor James McLean. Okay. The police have long suspected Livingston of being involved. He was a former driver and custodian.
So he was a former employee.
Who had worked with the victims. He had worked there for 8 years. And then seemingly for no reason quit in December of 1992. It was alleged that he gave the keys to the other men and gave them details on the warehouse's security systems and operations. All 4 suspects knew each other. A planner found in Young's home had Livingston and McLean's phone numbers within them. All 4 men at one point are charged with murder and armed robbery. In exchange for his testimony, Young enters a plea of guilty to 1 count of murder and is sentenced to 25 years to life. However, during the preliminary hearing for the other 3 men, Young recants his confession. As a result, in 1994, charges against James Brown are dropped due to lack of evidence. Young's plea agreement is revoked. He is found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder and robbery and is sentenced to 3 life sentences without the possibility of the parole. Livingston confessed to being involved In the robbery, however, he denied participating in the murders. And in April of 1996, he is found guilty of second-degree robbery and conspiracy to commit robbery, but is fully acquitted per a jury of the murders.
Okay, here's my question. Mm-hmm. So was he charged with the murders?
He was originally charged with the murders.
Because usually, if you're committing a felony, we've talked about this before, and something happens, dies in the process, you are held
accountable for it.
Responsible for that. Even if you're the getaway driver. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that law was in place.
I don't know if it was in place either, because to be convicted of the robbery but then acquitted of the murders is crazy, because even if you didn't pull the trigger.
So they're saying you were there, you did this,
and but
you're not responsible for pulling the trigger. Yep. That's wild.
Yeah, it is.
Stupid.
And stupid. I agree. Buckle up. It's going to.
Because it's not like these people were just run over. Mm-hmm. They were bound and shot in the back of the head, assassination style.
For nothing. Because I'm going to guess, I'm not a Loomis employee. I've never worked for an armed services before, or an armored truck before. 9 times out of 10, they are going to tell people, you do not fight people if they are coming in to rob. You do what they say, because they would rather try to recover the money and have their employees stay alive than die in a situation where it's money. So this man went on to serve 3 years in prison. That's it. Is later released. In his confession, he identified the first guy that they dropped the charges against, James Brown, as the mastermind. So in May of 1999, DNA evidence actually links that first guy, James Brown, to saliva found on a nylon stocking used as a mask left behind at the crime scene. So he is arrested again and charged with the murders. In May of 2001, he's convicted of the murders and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For some reason, in May of 2004, I think his conviction went up to, I think, at least the level of the Supreme Court in California, and his conviction was upheld. So here's a quick breakdown, because that's a lot of information. Tom Young, convicted of the murders and given 3 life terms. James Brown, serving life in prison without the possibility of parole due to the DNA evidence linked to him. Eugene Livingston, convicted.
Who was the former employee? Livingston was a former employee.
Former employee, yeah. Convicted of conspiracy to commit robbery, served 3 years, and is released. Then we have one lingering question, because I told you that there were 4 men involved in this, and 4 men originally charged. So in the Vallejo armored car murder cases that happened to Victoria James McLean, unlike Thomas Young, Eugene Livingston, and James Gary Brown, McLean seems to have disappeared from the public record after 1994. I read multiple old newspaper articles about James McLean. McLean, who at the time was 38 years old, was arrested and held in the Solaro County Jail after Thomas Young implicated him in 1991 of the murders of the 3 guards. But when Young later recounted his confessions during the preliminary process, prosecutors lost key evidence tying McLean to the case. Charges against McLean were dismissed. Unlike James Brown, who later was rearrested based on DNA evidence, there is no evidence publicly surfaced since 1991 against McLean. More than 30 years later, there is still no indication that McLean was ever recharged, convicted, or publicly linked to the case. But I would like to remind McLean, if he is listening to this, or if anyone in California is listening to this, there is no statute of limitations on murder. He theoretically could still face charges if new evidence emerged. And with the amount of stuff that was left behind, I guarantee you his DNA is somewhere on that. Possibly. So, as far as public records show, though, Victor James McLean remains the forgotten forgotten fourth suspect in North California is one of their most notorious unsolved murder cases at the time. So that's crazy.
It is wild, but I am at least glad they got some of them.
Yeah, but out of the four of them, one person never nothing. One person served a couple of years, got away with I don't like it. And then the other two, it just is weird that their convictions are so all over the place.
I agree. But I mean, hey, I'm glad some people got caught at least.
Yeah.
And are doing time.
So I hope McLean gets a paper cut every time he opens his mail. That he stubs his pinky toe every time his feet are cold. And that he always finds sand in his peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, even though he hasn't been to the beach in a while. Because that's weird and annoying. So, I don't know. Okay, Ben, do you need to get your notes?
I was getting my notes up, and now I have them up. So, you're welcome. Stand by. Hold on. Oh, that was way better. All right. Are you ready?
Can you just witness what's happening right now? Tell the people what's happening.
There's a cat trying to snuggle you.
But it is the cat.
The cat that doesn't snuggle.
That doesn't snuggle.
No, he's the best. All right. We have a medical thing going on. This one it's interesting. I'll leave you at that.
It's sad.
It's very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Yeah, I hope you're all ready for a sad story.
All right, December 31st, 1960, Guam, midnight. All right. Donatelia Santos and her husband, 34-year-old Francisco, were sleeping.
Francisco. That's fun to say. What is that from?
Elf.
Oh.
Golly.
I don't know this. Is Guam part of the United States?
I think it's a U.S. territory.
U.S. territory. Okay, that's what I thought.
I could be wrong, though. I don't know all of our U.S.
If you are wrong, people will tell us. Trust me. Yeah.
All right. So Donatelia, she tells us at 1:30 in the morning, she wakes up to Francisco snoring really loud. And she says, he never snored. And it was really weird. She tries to wake him up and he won't wake up. And then he never wakes up. He passes away in his sleep. So, like I said, this is 1960.
She's interviewed on this, you guys. She's telling this story.
This poor mother. Yeah,
mother and wife. Up. She's telling this story. She's going to be our main narrator throughout this case. When she was telling this story, even though she's telling it years later, you can still see the trauma on this woman's face.
Yeah, because it's going to get worse. So they contributed his death to a stroke from the result of heart failure. Okay. So they had 7 young kids at the time. And so, yeah. So in 1970, Donatelia, she remarries and they moved to Northern California. And in 1981, so 21 years later, 27-year-old Doris, which is the youngest daughter, she's found unconscious in her bedroom. We get told by the brother, he's interviewed. He's like, I go in, I see her. She's laying weird on her bed. He tries to wake her up. It's like, hey, what's going on? She won't wake up. She's passed away. Doctors determined that she had died from acute congestive heart failure. And so, tragedy. Now, this woman has buried her husband, her first husband, and her daughter. Within 2 years, 23-year-old Ronnie, which is the youngest, he started having chest pains. And at this time, we get interviewed by his fiance, or his wife, Dana. And so he goes to the doctor, he gets checked out, and he's told that he has a virus of the heart muscle. So they give him some meds. Things are going better. He gets married to Dana and they start living their life. Not too long after, they don't tell me the dates when this is all happening. You know how I feel about dates and like precise things. But he's playing softball and they say he's out there. He was playing. He's back in the dugout and he's like leaning on a bat, talking to a friend. They've got like an adult softball game going on. And all of a sudden,
and this was a regular part. This wasn't like all of a sudden he became active one day.
No,
like,
he said like he'd had chest pains. He went to the doctor. He's taking meds, and he pretty much was like, "Yeah, you continue to live your life as normal."
And he did. Yes,
And he did.
Yeah, he was regularly active in this softball tournament, other activities.
And as he's sitting there, he collapses and he dies. And so they ruled it cardiomyopathy, and they believe it virus of the heart. So what do we have? This is the second kid has passed away. So
yeah, 3 deaths from the same family.
A year later, the eldest son, 33-year-old Frank, his wife is interviewed. She's saying she's out with her mother-in-law, with Donatilla, and they get a phone call wherever they were and said, "Hey, you need to get home. Something's going on with Frank." They get there. Paramedics are there. Walk in. Frank has passed away. He was just watching television and he collapsed and died. And he's ruled that he has died from cardiomyopathy. So, we get, I'm looking at it. We get the Dr. George F. Van Hare. Says these family members had been checked out. They'd been looked at, and nothing at that time they could find any type of abnormal heart problems. And even they'd all been examined after death, and nothing had stuck out that there was something wrong severely with their hearts.
Yeah, there was no obvious sign of major heart damage, an oversized heart.
And they're all young.
Cardiac, yeah.
They're not even 35 years old. Like the oldest is what, 33?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the dad was 35?
Yeah.
Crazy.
And we're going to find out his father passed away at a really early age too, right? Didn't they talk about that, like the grandfather?
No, they didn't talk.
I thought maybe I looked that up later.
They say later, but they don't give us any details on that. So August 1987, 30-year-old Ralph, which is another son, he falls asleep on the sofa, never rules up. Never wakes up. Sorry, I was reading.
No,
I
you're
was
totally
reading
fine.
ahead in my notes. And his was ruled a viral infection of the heart. So now we are at 4 children. This lady has buried her first husband and 4 of her 7 kids.
In only a handful of years.
Less than 30 years.
In less than 30 years. And then none of her children are making it into adulthood.
No. They're all making it old enough to marry and have some kids and then pass away. So November 1991, 15-year-old Frank Santos Jr., so his father has passed. He was Frank Sr., who passed. He was at home watching television.
Yeah, so this is the grandson of the original man that passed away. Yeah.
The son of the Frank who passed away. The grandson of Donatilla.
Only at 15 years
He's at
old.
a high school dance. He collapses and he dies.
At 15.
So now, not only this, but also
3 generations.
Frank's wife has now buried her husband and her 15-year-old son. So we get this doctor on here. He's like, clearly this is a genetic. And I liked what he said. He goes, clearly this is a genetic disorder, but we're not smart enough to have figured out what this is yet. And he goes, and on top of it, we haven't had a lot of cases to study, so we don't know.
And then even when they pass away, we're not finding a clear-cut answer.
And that's where we're looking when they die, and we can't find anything that is helping us solve this problem. So They want to find out if anyone has any information on something like this to help the family. Because like we get interviewed with the only living son left. And he's like, listen, I'm worried. He's like, I have little kids. I just had a daughter. I'm married. What if, I want to at least raise my family? And from what it appears, it doesn't look like, with the way this is going, it doesn't look
these
like
people all seem like they're living like with, lack of a better term, like a gun held to their head at any moment.
But they're a great family. They're all really close.
They're all very close.
And they just want, and on top of it, because now they're scared. It's like, it's not just us, but now we're seeing it being passed on to the next generation. So let's try to fix this now. Maybe not for us, but maybe for the next generation too. So that's where Unsolved Mysteries leaves us.
Okay. Yeah. I think this is like the first time we've had anything like this on Unsolved Mysteries, some medical mystery that they're asking.
We might have had one, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
So, all right. Oh, yeah. Remember the lady that got charged with her son, her two kids?
Well, that wasn't asking Unsolved Mysteries for help. That was sharing.
But it was a medical thing that brought it
to light. Yeah.
Anyways, so you ready for your update?
Yeah. Give it to us.
All right. A tip from viewers actually led them to diagnose the family with what's called Brugada syndrome, which is a genetic disease. So doctors were able to learn more about it. They went and got treatment. One of the family members had implanted a defibrillator. The rest of the family members have all been diagnosed that have it. Clearly, they were able to find out how to diagnose it.
Did you do any research on what that is?
There actually is not a lot on.
Okay.
Like, I didn't look up for this Brugada syndrome. I just was looking up the family, but there's not a lot on this family afterwards. And so they were diagnosed. They are being treated with medications. And years later, no one else in the family has died from this disorder. They've all been treated. They've all been cared for and are able to be taken care of. Donatilia passed away in 2014 at the age of 83. So R.I.P. Breaks my heart she had to bury so many of her family members.
My gosh. Thankful to whoever called in and said, hey, look into this.
I'm going to guess some probably other doctors and medical people, or maybe another family that had this. And, they were maybe at a better place where doctors had been able to figure it out. And that. So.
I am really grateful that this doctor wasn't arrogant and like, well, I'm the smartest person in the room.
I like this doctor.
I agree that he was actually like, we don't know what the problem is and we need someone else we need some information to go on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
Different story. But yeah,
that's very interesting. Okay. We're actually going to dive right into another medical story. And this one is about a woman named Sarah D'Angio. Nope, Durango.
How'd you get D'Angie?
I don't know.
Durango.
You guys, no one wants to be inside my brain. It's already cloudy enough in here for just me. So this is actually one of Ben's favorite subjects, which is amnesia. And I really think that there is a case study to be done about why amnesia in the 80s and 90s was like such a huge diagnosis. Amnesia is a real thing. It is a real medical mystery, but it was used in a lot of ways. The lore behind it from pop culture at the time really kind of got out of hand. However,
This is not amnesia.
It actually is. I looked into it. Sarah actually has been diagnosed with this officially, though she's not searching for a loved one and no crime has been committed. She is sharing her story as someone who is living every day with amnesia. And I will say, I looked into this quite extensively. What her side effect is we're going to find out. We'll get into it. She had another medical thing happen. And this is a very rare, unlikely side effect, but that it can happen.
It's not the amnesia that we think of when we think of amnesia.
That's your point, is that, yes,
yes,
in
it
Unsolved
is
Mysteries
amnesia.
thus far, everything is like this person maybe hit their head in an accident and now they're wandering the streets with amnesia. This is not that story.
That's what I'm saying.
But also
This is
that storm of amnesia, that form of amnesia that has been pushed from Unsolved Mysteries and like TV shows and, soap operas and movies out of that time, that also doesn't really exist. Like that you bump your head and then forget everything.
Like the guy that showed up out of the desert in Nevada.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's a new documentary out about a guy. We just watched the cliff notes of it yesterday. That was found wandering around outside of a Burger King with like an ID who claims that he has amnesia. And it turns out that maybe he actually was a hitman for the mob. And this is how he's decided to like be able to get out of that. I don't know. I haven't watched the documentary yet. It's on my list. But this is an actual clinical case of amnesia. So October 13th, 1976, Sarah is then at that time 39 years old and is at the bank. Because back in the day, you used to actually have to go into the bank, which, not to get on my soapbox too much, but if you actually have to go into a bank nowadays, it is a pain in the backside because they're never open. No one ever works there. And they act annoyed that you walked through their doors. But that's a podcast for a different day. So she's had a pretty bad headache all afternoon. And she had suffered from migraines in the past. And on this day, however, the pain is pretty bad. And anyone who's ever suffered from a really bad headache or a migraine knows that it can really damper your day. I suffer from optical migraines, which is a visual migraine. I get like giant rainbow, like zigzags or lightning strikes in my vision that get bigger and bigger and bigger until I can't see anything. It ruins your whole day because I can't do anything. But these headaches seem to leave her confused and disoriented. The pain is so bad. So to the point where while she's at the bank, she's actually like even having a hard time focusing on the bank teller and loses vision out of her left eye. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you are in so much pain with a headache that you start to also like feel like you're going to vomit, you can't have a conversation, and then you lose your vision, please stop what you're doing and call 911. Don't do what Sarah did. She leaves the bank and goes home and decides to try to take a nap and lay down. 3 hours later, her husband comes home to find her laying in bed. And by this point, you guys, she's partially paralyzed and talking incoherently, which are signs of what, Ben?
A stroke.
A stroke, yeah. That's the other thing. Women specifically are at a high risk of strokes. I do not know why we are at higher risks of them, but we are. I had a friend when we were in our early 20s and I lived in Portland. We worked at a salon together. And I don't even think at the time she had kids yet. She was at Target with her husband and they didn't drink. And he thought that she had like secretly went and got drunk or something because all of the sudden she was at Target acting like a Looney Tune.
Yeah, that's a sign of stroke.
Slurring her words. But when you're early 20s, you don't know that.
Well, you wouldn't go there because you're young.
You just assume like what happened to the point where they like got into a fight in the middle of Target because he's accusing her of like being drunk in the middle of the afternoon. And turns out, yeah, even in her early 20s, she ended up having a stroke. So it is discovered that she has a blood vessel in her brain that had burst. And the doctors recommend a surgery. I mean, at the time, from my understanding, this was considered it's brain surgery, a delicate and risky operation, but it was also fairly new in the world of brain surgery in helping with stroke and blood vessel bursting, which is an aneurysm. if they weren't able to get into her brain and clear these blood vessels out, it would likely remain that she would be impacted with symptoms for the rest of her life. Surgeons used at the time a new procedure that they called microsurgery that allowed them to repair the blood vessels. However, when they went in, they realized they actually found a second rupture that had not been seen on the x-ray before, and the operation ended up lasting 9 hours. But the doctors are able to save her life. So this woman has 2 brain aneurysms, which cause a stroke, and is on an operating table having her brain messed with for 9 hours. The fact that she's even alive is incredible.
So did her aneurysms burst?
It doesn't seem like, I don't know. I couldn't find, because from my understanding, an aneurysm bursting in your brain is almost 100% fatal. So I don't know if it had, or I'm not quite sure. This is the information that I have from this, which is that they realized that a second one had ruptured. So yeah, maybe it was 2 smaller sized ones, but she had 2 ruptured blood vessels in her brain.
Okay.
Yeah. During the first...
Either way, she had some massive issues in her brain.
Mm-hmm. Which you guys, anyone who knows me now knows I have a little bit of anxiety, but I've had headaches most of my life. And it turns out that I have cherry malformation, which was made worse by a car accident. So I know what it's like to live with headaches all the time. I remember for a long time being terrified that I was going to have a brain aneurysm, because when I started having the optical migraines and my head pain was so intense. But it seems like the pain of these things happening like makes you feel like you're going to black out. So during the first few days of recovery, Sarah knew that something wasn't right. She had noticed that within the first 3 days, her husband's appearance had changed dramatically. She also didn't recognize the woman that came in accompanying her husband. Her name was Kelly. Turns out that Kelly's actually her adult daughter. To the point where Kelly's interviewed and she's almost saying her mom was giving her the side eye. Who is this woman with my husband talking to me while I'm in the hospital? It turns out that 16 years of her memory had been erased. In Sarah's mind, she woke up and it was 1960. She was 23 years old and was the mom of 3 small children. But in reality, it was 1976. She was 39 years old and had 4 almost grown kids living at home. So 2.5 weeks after surgery, Sarah's released from the hospital. And the neighborhood, as she's driving home, has completely changed. What used to be a dirt road is now paved. Empty lots are filled with new houses. She entered her home and everything she had changed from what she remembered. This is the crazy part that Sarah obviously is in shock, but I don't understand. For some reason, she decides not to tell anybody about this symptom.
Nothing about this makes sense.
That doesn't make any sense to me. You were in the hospital for 2 weeks with a man who was telling you that he was your husband, that now appears...
He doesn't even look like him.
And he doesn't look like him.
You don't even want to say, hey.
You haven't asked where your baby children are.
Nope. Because in 1960, they said she had 3 kids.
Yeah. 3 little children.
Yeah. And then later on after she had a 4th.
Where they are.
Nope.
I don't understand. For some reason, and I will say, this woman went on to tell her story on multiple. She was on Oprah and several other daytime talk shows. I could not find any reason why she did not mention this to anybody. She didn't say anything to her husband. She didn't say anything to her doctors. However, she spends the next several weeks looking through photo albums, hoping to have her memory return. She becomes confused when ordinary appliances in her home, like her dishwasher, that were not really available in the 1960s, microwaves, are completely unheard of to her. So to her, according to her story, this is a miracle that's changed. And she said even the car that she was driving seemed futuristic to her. So Sarah quietly tries to adjust to her new life. She does notice, though, however, her taste in music and fashion change. She seems to start living her life like a young woman again. And her daughter's interviewed and says this was weird to her. Her mom was almost acting like one of her friends or someone, a colleague her age. She was into modern music, modern fashion, and her daughter is interviewed. She's like, she didn't like it. It was like it bothered her that her mom all of a sudden was like,
Well, but her mom's completely different.
yeah, which is not uncommon sometimes with brain injuries and brain things.
I understand.
But again,
and maybe this is just because she had a massive brain injury and we don't understand. Like her brain is firing completely different now. Not only has she lost this memory, but maybe even her reasoning.
Yeah.
Because nothing about this makes sense.
No.
You're telling me this lady doesn't even understand anything in the world around her.
The technology, the people
she doesn't even
living
understand
with.
the people.
Yeah.
And she just says,
I'm not going to say
roll
anything.
with it.
Yeah.
I'll roll with these strangers that I don't even know, or the man that I don't even recognize.
I'm going to sleep in bed next to a man that I don't recognize that's telling me that he is my husband and I don't know where my children are.
I'm going to live in this house that I don't recognize.
I would have ended up in a psychiatric hospital because I would have been a crazy person. I would have torn the walls apart trying to get out of there and find my kids. If I was convinced that I had little children somewhere and that this is like a psychological thriller movie waiting to happen.
Well, but also like the man sitting in front of you, you don't not know him. You at least know him, but to you, he's older.
That's crazy.
But you know his name and you know you're married to him.
Yeah.
You didn't say, hey, Bob. I don't know what his name is, but hey, Bob. I'm confused. Nothing is what it seems.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me?
Yeah. So according to her, she manages to keep up this facade until 1979 when she realizes that she's not alone in this sort of aftermath of a traumatic brain injury. A news article from a newspaper gave her courage to tell her family that she was also suffering from amnesia. So that is kind of where Unsolved Mystery leaves us. Sarah doesn't know what has happened she's lost 16 years. She doesn't know how she's going to get it back. I think now half the problem is that she's waited so long to tell anybody about this. I'm not sure what can be done at this point.
I guess, but here's my question.
Yeah.
What is the point of this story? Because this is an unsolved mystery. This is Unsolved Mysteries. Yeah. And this is where, I kind of was like, this is not a mystery. You had an aneurysm.
Yeah.
You had a 9-hour brain surgery. So the mystery is not how you got amnesia. We all know how you got amnesia.
Yeah.
And even me, who doesn't, I believe this lady got some type of amnesia. If you mess around with someone's brain and it was a new surgery. We have no idea what happened in that operating room for 9 hours. Is it possible they messed up her brain? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it possible she came out, forgot everything? So I guess my question is,
why is this on Unsolved Mysteries?
What are you trying to solve in Unsolved Mysteries? I don't
know.
Because we already know how you got amnesia.
And we know what amnesia is.
We know what it is. We know how you got it.
Yeah,
we can't tell you about those 16 years.
I looked up a news article about this. So during CrimeCon, I got a 50% off for the year pass to newspapers.com, which has actually been a fascinating thing to unlock because a lot of local newspapers covered when Unsolved Mysteries did local stories. So I found the article about this lady from her little tiny hometown. And the producer at the time that produced this story is interviewed. And they kind of ask that question, that why is this? And the lady just said that we don't know a lot about the brain. It's a fascinating story. And since they talk about amnesia and other things, they wanted to highlight a different side of it. Okay, I think both things are valid. I think your question is valid. I can see where the producer, I feel like this was a missed opportunity that they could have talked far more about the mystery around amnesia, where we think it came from, how we think it happens, what is the recovery process like. But again, I wasn't the producer at the time. It's a little bit of a fluff piece. It's, Sarah shares her story as someone living with amnesia. So I've got some updates,
I was
which
going to say, do you have any, what is an
kind of
update on this?
So in the years since, Sarah did recover some of her memory. She started to get some things back. A lot of it, though, I read it's possible that a lot of it was quote unquote almost like filled in memories just based on pictures and stories behind it, where her brain was able to just kind of chronologically put those in order. However, she was still trying to find any ways that she could to recover all of her memories. She lost all of her children growing up, basically. Sadly, she did pass away in 2018 at the age of 81. So it seems like it didn't affect her longevity of health, which is someone who suffered from not amnesia, but an aneurysm and a stroke of some sort, that she went on to live, a relatively full life until she was in her early 80s. So I did look up some statistics around amnesia.
I do just want to say, I'm not trying to, if it came across I'm not trying to be rude to her or her story. I 100% believe her. I don't have a problem that she wanted to share her story.
Great question. I don't know how she didn't say anything earlier. That's crazy.
And I know, so that's why I tried to preface, it doesn't make any sense, but I also have not been someone that has gone through a 9-hour surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So we have no idea. And that is what, we don't understand the brain of how it fires.
I have lived through a brain surgery. Now, mine was, I don't know how long I was back there for. I have actually no memory of that day whatsoever, which amnesia can be caused by brain surgery. It can also be caused from certain drugs that they put you under. I have no memory of that day or even the days before or a couple of the days after. I was in ICU for a week. I have almost no memory of that.
Yeah.
Do you remember how long I was in surgery for?
A few hours.
A few hours. And my surgery was done on the lower part of my brain, not the frontal or the center of the brain, which is usually responsible for.
Well, the doctor came in and said, amnesia is not uncommon, even in this story.
Yeah.
But it's usually centered around the event, that event. And then it's just for you don't remember the day. You probably never will.
Yeah.
And for her, that's what they were confused, because usually she wouldn't have probably remembered that day or the surgery, but to lose 16 years.
Yeah. So that's what I looked up. So amnesia caused by an actual stroke is actually relatively rare, fully diagnosed medical amnesia, making up less than 1% of acute events. An amnesia stroke is an acute neurological event where memory loss happens, but typically it's the inability to form new memories as the primary symptom of the amnesia. It is even more rare for them to lose memories that long, like Ben said, maybe around the time of the event, but typically not that far out. However, it also appeared that it seems like, from what I can understand from Sarah's story in particular, and it's hard because medical records are obviously private, it seems like there's a belief online, or some people have suggested, that where her stroke happened is in the thalamus of the brain, which I'm probably saying that wrong, which I think is centrally located and is the area attributed to holding long-term memories. A lot of strokes and brain events happen in the frontal cortex, which is our ability for short-term memory and cognitive thinking, or quick decisive actions. And what is even more crazy is that this has actually nothing to do with Alzheimer or dementia, which I always wondered if there was a through line, because amnesia is either loss of memories from previous or inability to like retain new memories, but you don't lose cognitive function. You don't lose your ability to care for yourself in other ways. Dementia and Alzheimer tend to also affect parts of the brain that you revert back into a state of childhood-like abilities as far as your cognitive and your physical abilities. So I find amnesia fascinating. I still have the question as to what happened. It reminds me a lot of Satanic Panic, where we have this weird burst of cultural and like pop events around amnesia from this time that it kind of was like the cure-all or the answer for everything. If anyone went missing, if anything happened, it was amnesia, amnesia, amnesia. We see it in movies.
We did want to throw that label on a thing. And here's the thing, like I said, this lady really did have amnesia, but this was like the medical amnesia, not the I wandered off and I forgot who I am.
Yeah.
I bunked my head.
I still haven't really even found any cases, even in the like years we've been doing this, of that actually is a real diagnosed thing, that someone wandered off and had amnesia and ended up living on the streets or like living another life, where they actually were diagnosed with that. Maybe those exist out there, but definitely not to the tune like we've seen them speculated on Unsolved Mysteries, or that they were referenced in pop culture at the time. So I don't know. It's not my thesis to write, but it would definitely be an interesting study as to when this phenomenon started, why it started, and what kind of ended up squashing the phenomenon of the amnesia.
Phenomena.
We
figured out what that was from yesterday.
We did figure out where that was from.
All right.
It's from the Muppets, in case anyone else wants to know.
But it's not phenomena, but we just turned it in.
Turned it in. Yeah. Maybe that's maybe what our merch will be, is like to those two little things going phenomenon. Do.
All right. Are you ready? Are you done?
Take us. Oh, I forgot. I was going to read some of our, hold please.
And I'm holding.
Of our 5-star reviews. So if you guys want to be extra special and have all of your wildest dreams come true and get the gift of a unicorn, you can leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast or wherever you get Unsolved Couple at. Or you can leave a comment on Spotify. That's the other place. And so I was going to read some of our 5-star reviews. Okay. Title of the review, love it. And this is from a user called Don't Sign Up 999. Sounds like something Ben would put down. And the body of the review says, can't get enough. There you go. Simple and easy. This is from, the title of the review says, bring on the nostalgia. This is from user CCJ. And the body reads, love this revisit to a show that was such an integral part of my childhood. Such a fun way to transport back to a simpler time with the Unsolved Couple. Okay. And this one is called, the title of the review says bingeable. And the username is Sierra Reed. So there we go.
It's telling you to read it.
It's telling me to read it. So I'm going to read it for you.
Just read it.
Just read it. And all of these are obviously 5 stars. But the body says, absolutely love them. I have listened since episode 5 and can't get enough. Always wait for the next episode. So if you would like
Do you think she went back and listened to the first 4? Or did she just start at 5?
She just started at 5 and was in it to win it. Yeah. If you would like your review read, please leave us a 5-star rating review on Apple Podcast, or leave us a nice comment on anywhere that you get your podcast, Spotify, so on and so forth. Follow us on social media, and we will make sure to do so. Ben, do you have our last story for us?
Sure.
There you go. You were muted for a second.
I know.
You got our last story for us?
Yes, it's an interesting one.
Okay.
I claimed this one.
I know Ben did claim this one, which he doesn't do very often. So bring us home, Ben.
Yeah. All right. October 25th, 1987, New Rockford, North Dakota. A fight breaks out between Kathy Bonderson and her husband. I have his name later on, Robert. Kathy's upset because their son is not home. He's a teenage boy. He's out with his girlfriend, and he's not home yet. And they're fighting. And her husband, Robert, has just come back from looking for them. But he says, I can't find them. You're free to go look for yourself if you want. And this is all in the reenactment. She says, fine, I will. So Kathy's upset because it's 2 a.m. He's not home. The dad says he'll come home when he's ready. Probably not the best idea. That's not how I would go about it if my kid was still missing at 2 a.m. But hey, I'm not here to give parenting advice.
I'm just confused. I have a lot of questions. This one was supposed to be at work, from my understanding. And her husband, who lives with him, they live together under the same roof, like wakes her up and yells at her that their son is not home. But he's also overlooking.
He doesn't wake
for him.
her up. They're just upset. They're waiting for him to get home. He's not home. He goes and looks for the kid.
So he leaves the house to go look for his son, comes back and says, I can't find him. And also, this is your fault. I'm done looking, so you can go look for him.
He just says,
listen,
I can't find him. He'll come home when he comes home. She doesn't like that answer. She says no. And so he says,
so was the dad actually mad that his son was out then? Because if you're really upset about it, then why do you say, I'm not going to look for him?
I'm going to answer your question later on. Okay. So she says, fine. So she goes off looking for him. Okay. 2:30 a.m. The son sees his mom's car heading out of town. This looks like it's a very small place. He sees her car heading out of town, and in the reenactment's like, oh crap, that's my mom. I hope she doesn't see me. And she just drives her on by. Guess she didn't recognize her son's car or whatever. Or maybe he's in his girlfriend's car. I don't know. And boom, leaves. But he says it's dark, so we can't see who is driving the vehicle. So he goes home. An hour later, there's a report of a car burning off a county road just a few yards west of some railroad track crossings. Fire department shows up and they put the fire out. They look inside. Guess what they find? They find a body. And the body is in a seated position on the floorboards of the passenger side of the vehicle. The body is later identified as Kathy Bonderson. So, Sheriff Edward Almaris, he was the sheriff of Eddy County at the time. He's interviewed. I don't think he's the sheriff anymore. From my research, I think he was done in 91 or 89, possibly. This is in 1987. So he says he shows up. It's morning time. This was 3:30 in the morning when it got called in. A few hours later, the sun's up. He says the whole car is just burned. Everything front to back. It's completely gone. Right? And he believes the fire started at the front of the car. And he says, like, the car's all bent up, and it looks like, from his research, the car went over the railroad tracks, but not at the railroad track crossing. He believes Kathy lost control of the vehicle just before the railroad track crossing, swerved off the road, went over the railroad tracks, and comes to a stop on the other side. That caused a spark and started the car on fire. And due to her going over the tracks, not at the crossing, but it jolted her out of her seat. That's why she ended up on the passenger side. And so
I do not understand how this man came to this conclusion. This seems like a fantastical theory. That's just my two cents as I was watching this.
So the sheriff rules it an accident, a tragic accident. He says he thought maybe she was swerved to miss something, hit these railroad tracks really hard, loses control. Like we've all seen that where your car, you do something. We've all seen car accidents. Something happens and then just disaster follows afterwards, right? Okay. But even though everything in the car we get Robert Stack's back. He says, it's weird. This is his ruling. This is his finding. But even though everything in the car is melted, the keys are on the floor, not melted in that. So what do we have? But Robert Stack says, but we have another law enforcement official who believes this is not an accident. So this is where our story comes in. All right. The next day, so 24 hours after this has happened, Captain William Byram of the Highway Patrol, North Dakota Highway Patrol, he shows up at the scene because he has to do a standard report of a vehicle accident and obviously a death. So when he gets there, he says, listen, none of this scene looks like a normal car accident. And I'm going to guess you're a highway patrolman. You've seen a lot. And this guy's older, so I'm going to guess he's got a lot of years under his belt, and he's seen a lot of car accidents. He says nothing about this looked right. I'm sorry. Let me go back. The sheriff said there was marks over the railroad tracks. That's why he came to the conclusion that the car went over, because there was marks on the railroad tracks, not at the railroad crossing. Right. So Captain William Byron, as he's looking around at the scene, he says there's no marks where the car left the road. He doesn't see any tire marks, and there's no tire tracks going off the road. The tall grass that's in the area is undisturbed, which you would think she would mow down if she went over. And he notices the marks on the railroad tracks are a reddish color. He talks to the fire department, and they're like, yeah, they had rubber fire hoses, red fire hoses. And they're like, yeah, we did. We were on both sides of the tracks, and we were dragging that fire hose back and forth across the tracks. He believes those marks on the railroad tracks are made from the fire department. So I'm just looking. So the next day, now the Captain Byram is like, you know what? Well, I'm going to dig into this some more. The next day, he and the fire marshal examine the car. And he says, listen, there's no structural damage to this car. He goes, which, again, in an accident like this, you would see some type of structural damage. Also, the fuel line and the fuel tank are intact. The fuel tank still has 12.
Cars catch on fire, but they do not spontaneously catch on fire.
Unless you're a 2014 Ford F-150.
Yours? That happened to you?
This.
Oh, yeah.
At
work, yeah.
In our agency, we bought Fords for a while, and we had at least just in our fleet, which we didn't have a ton of them.
Mm-hmm.
2014 Ford F-150s spontaneously caught on fire in the front. There was an electrical problem in the front, which then it made its way back to the fuel line.
Fuel tank, yeah.
Which it is wild that this fire didn't eventually get the fuel line.
Yeah, I think that's an important point.
But yes.
But again, at all of those spontaneous fires, how many people driving those vehicles died?
And ours, none.
Exactly. Because they had enough time to remove themselves from... What I'm saying is no car spontaneously explodes into a flame where you cannot get out of the vehicle. Yeah.
The fire... Excuse me, I'm sorry. The fire would start, and we saw it like... some buddies of mine that called. We were leaving. They called me back.
Yeah, and you're right. There's still like gallons and gallons of fuel left in the tank in this car too. Yeah.
So
There's a lot of evidence pointing that this wasn't an accident.
So there's 12 and a half gallons of gas still in the tank. The fire marshal comes to the conclusion that the fire started in several different areas of the car, not just one. And that he's like, listen, I actually can't rule this an accidental fire. He goes, it appears this wasn't accidental. It was intentional.
And that's my point of this is you've got two law enforcement experts, certified and trained in multiple areas of expertise saying, hey, we don't know what happened, but we can tell you that this wasn't just a one-off accident. The problem I always have is when you get someone in law enforcement and a small town sheriff, we're from Pima County, we get it, digs in his heels and refuses to not follow the evidence, but instead looks for evidence to justify his theory on what happened.
Yeah, but I'm going to get it. I guess I'm confused. Why was the fire marshal not brought in the beginning?
Great question.
Because if you're investigating a fire, bring in the expert that knows this stuff. Like the fire marshal, that's what he does. That's the only thing he does. Like on the investigation
as I was watching
side.
this, I had a lot of questions.
So Captain Byram's like, listen, none of this is adding up. So 3 weeks later, he requests that Kathy's body be exhumed. And he goes to the sheriff, and the sheriff Almaris, and says, listen, I want to exhume her body. The sheriff digs in his heels and says, no. So the captain says, fine, I'll go get a court order. And so the sheriff was like, fine. He relents and he signs it off that her body can be exhumed. Best part, they get the sheriff back and he goes, I was ticked off when they made me sign that to get her body exhumed.
Why?
I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing. I'm not surprised. We see it in law enforcement. We see it in every field. I shouldn't say law enforcement, where people's pride get in the way that they can't possibly be wrong. And it ends up, unfortunately, costing time and money and energy and effort. And yeah, I was even surprised that this man did an interview because if you want my honest opinion, he looks like a fool.
So he even says, he goes, the doctor that did the autopsy, which I guess they sent it to Minnesota because it's a very small area. He says, the sheriff's like, they couldn't come up with anything in the autopsy of how Kathy died. Then they go straight to the captain and he's like, yeah. He goes, no, they found in the autopsy that Kathy was dead before the fire started. There was no carbon monoxide in her lungs. So she was probably dead before the fire started. Then they go back to the sheriff and he's like, yeah. He goes, but I asked the doctor, could she have died from striking her head from the accident? And she died before the fire started because he goes, when you're in an accident, your body's flying around and you hit your head on things and she could have died. Then to come to find out, they tested the carpet. I guess there was some carpet left in the car and Kathy's clothes, and it had remnants of gasoline, which doesn't make sense because the gasoline tank and the fuel lines were still intact. So someone put gasoline in that car. And then an empty gas jug was found 300 yards away from the accident, like a few days after the accident.
This is what I'm talking about. There is more evidence pointing in a different direction, but it goes ignored.
So here's my last two quotes from both men. Sheriff Almaris, he will not change his findings, even though with all this stuff, he thinks this is an accident. And he says this, there's been no proof offered. Nothing in my investigation brought up anything that even would give you inklings that this might be a homicide. We go to the captain and he says, there are too many other facts leading me to believe that it was not an accident. and I have to work with facts. And I think those two quotes pretty much sum up your two guys here. Listen, so that's where Unsolved Mysteries leaves us. Before I get into our update, actually, I'll get into our update.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. That's where the Unsolved Mysteries leaves us. What happened to her? Did she die?
Yeah.
What do we think?
What happened? Yeah. What's our update?
Update. 18 years later, this was reopened. It was opened in November of 2005. Okay. By a cold case unit. And so they started looking into it. They look for her husband, who was Robert Bonderson. They find he is living in Wyoming at the time. This happened in North Dakota. They request to talk to him. And they set up a time to talk to him in February of 2006. So just a couple months after they reopened the case. And they're trying to set it up to talk to him. They go to talk to him. Guess what? He gone. He's disappeared. April 2006, they finally find Robert. He's in a cabin in Montana, and he's killed himself. Investigators end up closing this case and pretty much saying, yeah, the husband killed her. They believe he killed her. I also found that the son and his girlfriend did tell police they saw him driving the vehicle. And not just did they say that, but it was written in like the girlfriend's diary that night. She wrote it in her diary, like that they saw him driving the mom's car.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The son claims he went home, that he was driving, saw his mom's vehicle.
They don't interview him.
But that's what I mean. If he went home, was his dad at the house?
Here's the thing.
If his dad wasn't, where was the man when the wife, who he had just gotten into a fight with, was found dead? Like, I just don't think that this was investigated at all. I would love to know if this sheriff and this guy were friends at one point.
So that was my, I guess I wanted to know that too. So I dug in. I couldn't find anything, but there's not a lot on this sheriff, unfortunately. Like I found that he was sheriff. He passed away in 99 or 97, somewhere around there. So, he's been gone a while. And yeah, that was kind of like, were they friends? Were they not? This is my thing. It is frustrating because, the captain did a great job. Good for him. He shows up. He sees things. He's like, this doesn't add up. This was my frustration with this sheriff. And bless his heart, he's just a very small time. And from what it appeared, he was pretty much the only law enforcement. I found him like on a page of like loan. It was pretty much saying like he was on his own pretty much all the time. I think he was the sheriff, probably the only law enforcement guy in that area, period, end of story. So he probably had a lot on his shoulders.
Justify.
I'm not saying it justifies. What it is frustrating.
It could justify maybe some ignorance, but it doesn't excuse ignoring very clear facts.
And that's the thing that's why I said those two quotes, because it goes to show it is clear the sheriff came to a conclusion and then he only looked at the things that helped solidify his idea. And then when things were brought up, like I hate that. What I hated is when the autopsy's done, it's like she was dead before. It's like, yeah, but could it have been this? Well, your job in law enforcement is like, it could have been that, but it also could be all these things. And until we eliminate everything down to the one thing, that's the job. The job is to look at everything and try to eliminate as much as you can. Then that leads you to the answer, hopefully. And sometimes you can't eliminate everything. And it just leaves you with multiple windows. And that's what even the captain did. He's like, listen, I see this, this, this. Could it be an accident? Yes, it could. But also these things also still leave the door open for homicide. So until we can eliminate that, you can't say it's an accident. And that was what he was saying. He's like, I only deal in facts. I have to look at the facts. And until facts close doors, you can't take anything off the table. And it was unfortunate because it was clear this sheriff had an idea and he took everything else off the table, and anything else that showed up, he said, well, but could it possibly? Sure.
Or just ignored it altogether.
Here's the thing. Sure. Could a car go across a railroad track, hit something so hard and spark a fire?
Yeah.
Is it possible?
Yeah,
sure.
But I need some evidence to back that up. And the gas can being found a couple feet away. But
also does that say that that's the only possibility? And until you have to look at every possibility.
Yeah.
Until you come down to your one.
Yeah.
And that was my other frustration is why didn't you just call the fire marshal?
Yeah.
Say, hey man, like this is what I got. What do you see? What do you got? You know?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like any investigation was done, period, end of story. And, we've covered a lot of cases that are unanswered or receive justice very late because tunnel vision. And tunnel vision can be in any industry, but it definitely has some wide effects, a ripple effect when it's in law enforcement. When you see an investigator, instead of following the facts where it leads them, finding facts to fit their belief of what happened.
I don't know. I saw a sheriff, I respect, I respect anyone that wears the uniform. I don't think he had malice. I just think he had stubbornness. And unfortunately, that stubbornness led to an injustice. And that's where you got to put that pride. You got to put that stubbornness aside. And you got to do
no place for it in an investigative
but just do
role.
the right thing.
Yeah. Do
the right thing at all times. Even if it means saying you're wrong, do the right thing. There's nothing wrong with it's okay
all
to
make mistakes.
It's okay
in our
to first
career.
come out and say, this looks like an accident. Okay.
Great.
But make sure. Just do the right thing and follow the thing. But good also on this captain.
Yeah.
This highway patrolman. He came in. He could have easily said, hey, the local law enforcement's taking care of it. I'm doing my report. Yeah. Boom. And he's like, and not only did he see things wrong, he kept going for weeks and months. It's like, no, I'm going to keep digging into this because something about this ain't right. Good for him, man.
Yeah. I mean, to the point of getting a body exhumed, which is not an easy thing to do.
And it's too bad because nothing happened for years. Unfortunately, probably because it wasn't his case to deal with.
Yeah.
So he couldn't open it. But because of what he did, caused speculation, which got that case opened 18 years later.
Yeah.
If he hadn't have done what he did and pointed those things out and raised these concerns and pushed for this stuff, that stuff would have never been in the file. And that file would have been shelved and stored away forever. But because of what he did is what is the reason 18 years later, a cold case detective picked it up and said, hey man, let's look at this. And they probably looked and was like, we should just interview this guy. And well, here we go. We got our killer.
Yeah, and I think that's frustrating is that this case could have really been solved and closed relatively fairly quickly.
Yes, it could have.
But instead, while we have an idea of who likely did it, we don't have a conviction. We don't have justice. We don't have any answers for a family that was left with this.
That's why I was going back to the whole story of the son and that all came from the husband. So it was all BS anyways.
Yeah.
So whatever he said, he'd looked and now he sent his wife out to look. Clearly, his wife never left to go look.
No.
He killed her at the house, put her in the car, drove her down there.
Yeah.
And burned the car.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, you guys, that is our recap of what are we talking about? Season 4, episode 24 of Unsolved Mysteries. As a friendly reminder, make sure to follow us wherever you get this podcast. There's 3 little dots. Please make sure just to automatically download us. It goes a huge way when we have those automatic downloads. We just drop into your feed and then you can listen to us when you get to us. And then if you don't like our banter, I'm gonna stop apologizing for it, but you're welcome to exit stage right. And for the people that do enjoy a little bit of fun and banter, let's lighten it up a little bit. This was kind of a rough episode. We talked about some sad things, especially Ben's stories. Ben, here is your question. Is there a conspiracy theory? Your mic is muted, by the way. Is there a conspiracy theory that you do believe, or one that you feel holds the most weight? There's hundreds of conspiracy theories.
I think we've talked about this, but I don't remember.
I've got a list of some of the most silliest ones out there. If you want me to jog your memory on any of them.
Right now, I can't think of anything off.
You can't think of anything off the top of your head that you're like, I tend to believe that, or I could see that being a thing.
Yeah, no, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay.
Give me some lists and I'll...
Well, these are stupid ones that are like really dumb ones, but I'll tell you some that I could see being true.
Okay, go ahead.
Illuminati.
The Illuminati.
So that famous people or people that are very wealthy sell their soul to some sort of devil or evil entity in order to become famous. You're laughing at me. Okay, so some sort of like sacrifice or ritual in order to join the world of the elite.
I didn't even know that was a conspiracy theory.
Ben's learning all of these new things. Okay.
I didn't even know that was
the ice wall in Antarctica.
What about it?
That there's something that's hiding behind it.
Oh my gosh, no.
The moon landing was fake.
No.
These are just ones. I do believe the Illuminati. That is one that I would be like, I would not be surprised because there's a lot of rich and famous people that are just awful human beings with no talent. And I'm like, how did you get where you are? That there is the other kind of thing within the vein of the Illuminati, that there is almost like a handful of very wealthy families that have worldwide influence over everything. No. Okay.
I mean, are there powerful people and families out there that have a lot of influence? Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You don't think that they're manipulating world governments and organizations and leadership?
What's this billionaire that funds all these politicians?
Epstein.
No.
He did for a while.
Yeah, I believe he did.
Yeah.
But I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Well, there is a new conspiracy right now that Bill Gates has started a like 3D printing meat company. So it's fake meat. And that he has bioengineered ticks that when people are like bit by ticks, that they will develop an allergic reaction to actual like beef and meat. So then they will be forced to buy and eat fake printed meat.
Word.
You don't think so? You don't think that people do evil, corrupt, dirty things for money?
Yes, I do. But like, that seems like a big jump.
I don't think so. Okay, let's line up. Here's some silly ones. Okay. Okay. Area 51 is a publicity stunt by the government to hide testing facilities. Like a smokescreen, look over here.
To hide other testing facilities?
Some other kind of testing facility, yeah.
I believe the government has multiple testing facilities? Yes. Do I believe Area 51 is a place where they do stuff and they do top secret stuff? Absolutely. And I've actually met a man that worked in Area 51.
And what did he have to say about it?
He doesn't say.
And that should be enough of an indicator, right? That he won't talk about it.
That's the thing is, it's not a conspiracy theory. We know that in Area 51, they do stuff that they don't want the rest of the public to know.
But we want to know.
But you don't need to know.
We do need to know. Okay. Big Bread, quote unquote, paid toaster manufacturers to put a setting, making our settings on our toasters too high so that our bread is more likely to burn, causing us to have to go out and buy more bread.
No. That is the dumbest thing
I thought that was a fun one. Okay.
Only because we're going to keep buying bread. Bread goes bad after literally a week.
I know. Okay.
So why would we need to toast it, ruin it?
Okay.
We're going to buy it anyways.
Here's another fun one. The only reason that Disney came out with a movie named Frozen was so that when you Googled Disney and the word Frozen together, you would get information about a movie versus the old websites that used to pop up talking about Walt Disney's head being frozen.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It was a big thing for a while that like Walt Disney had his head frozen so that he could come back if they were able to like.
So they made a whole movie just to stop that? But why?
I don't know, man.
What's the benefit of people stopping and looking at that?
About people looking at Walt Disney having his head frozen?
Yeah. Did it stop people from going to Disneyland or seeing the movies?
No, even the Disney cruise ship full of child predators has not stopped people from going to Disney.
That's what I'm saying. The point is, if someone looks up Walt Disney's head being frozen, they're not going to say, now that I looked at that, I'm never going to Disneyland and I'm never watching another movie.
And again, I really believe that rich people are weird and into some weird stuff and think in titles. So am I surprised that Walt Disney maybe had his head carcinogenically frozen so that he could come back at a later day?
Do I think he did that? No, I don't.
Would it surprise me?
No, yet.
No, it wouldn't surprise me. Nothing surprises me anymore with people. Okay, here's the last one for you, and it's sports related, so buckle up. Because I don't even know what they're talking about. Rob Gronkowski, he's a Patriots, number 87.
Rob Gronkowski?
Gronkowski.
Oh my.
Didn't actually injure his groin after scoring his 69th career touchdown. He did that because he thought it would be funny and make him infamous.
No, that's the dumbest thing I've ever. This is the first I've ever heard of this. And I follow sports. Yeah. I know who Rob Gronkowski is.
I don't know who he is.
He's a tight end. He was for the Patriots. He even came back and was.
Well, I guess his groin was a little too tight on his 69th touchdown, and he pulled it. That's
the dumbest thing I've heard. Oh my gosh. Where do people come up with this stuff?
I don't know. That's
the thing is, everything is a conspiracy now.
Is there are there any conspiracies out there that you're like, yeah, I could see that being a thing? Or do you just believe everything that the government tells us?
No. You can't try. You can't do the government's one way batting or 1,000? The other. I'll give you one conspiracy.
Okay.
That I'm like, yeah, this doesn't add up.
Okay.
Maybe I've said this before. If I have, I apologize, but you're going to hear it again.
Well, it's our podcast. We can say whatever we want.
You are telling me in 2026, with all the technology, we can send things to Mars, the moon, not just people, but just things. We can literally send a missile thousands of feet, thousands of miles. And hit a dime.
The most precise target, yeah.
But we can't invent an engine that gets more than 40 miles to the gallon.
Okay, I was actually thinking about this. Is actually what started me thinking
We've
about
had
this.
gas
I
engines.
fueled up my vehicle today, and I drive a minivan. Nothing fancy, but minivans do use a little bit more fuel because it's a little heavier. But I have children.
It gets 25 miles to the
But for a
gallon.
minivan, it gets good. It costs me like $75 to fuel up, and I will say, I even told my kids, I am grateful that I have the ability to to fully fill up my car, because I know for a fact, because we have been there before, that there are people right now that cannot afford to do so. And I do not think that Elon Musk, with the insanely overpriced electric vehicles that are really inconvenient for anyone who doesn't live in a major metropolitan city, that is our only option, that there is not something out there. And that there has been reports for decades now of people that have invented ways to run vehicles on hydrogen and other things that have wound up dead.
So I will tell you one story which goes into my conspiracy theory. That's all I'm saying. I don't know. And I'm not accusing. Like, people are like, what do you think? I don't know. But it just seems weird to me that we have had gas engines for what, the 40s, the 50s, the 30s, like almost 100 years. And the best we got is 40 to 50 miles to the gallon. That's the best. And that's on like tiny cars. Trucks, if you have a truck, the best you're going to get is 20 miles to the gallon. I think like the F-150s, we're not talking about electric. The best you're going to get is like 22 miles to the gallon for a truck. Mine gets 15. That's the best. Here's my story. My grandfather, was an amazing man, loved him, quiet, said very little. He worked machinery. He helped build stuff for World War II. Told a story that his friend bought a car. Friend of him, and these are how all stories are. It's a friend of a friend. And that car got 100 miles plus to the gallon. He had it for a little bit, and some people showed up and took it away. It was a defect, and they took it from him. Do I know that story's true? No idea.
But why would your grandpa make it up?
That's why I give a little credence. This man he lived in a double wide.
Yeah.
That was my grandfather.
Yeah.
One of the humblest mans I ever knew.
Yeah. He wasn't a tall tale or a big showy fancy. Yeah.
Was the story true? I don't know. Am I remembering it right? I don't know. I heard it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
He passed away when I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
So he's been gone, for 20 plus years. So can't ask him. So that is literally my only conspiracy there. And I'm not even pointing the finger because I don't know.
I'll point the finger. Big oil. There is so much money to be made.
Big oil to
government
car companies.
And the car companies, 100%.
But it has to be tied to all car companies because you have car companies in Japan, Germany, all over the world.
Yeah, but we all get our oil from one place.
So I'm not saying it's not possible.
Yeah.
If there's any conspiracy theory that I'm willing to buy in, if someone could bring me something.
Okay, along that same vein, do you think there is a world where pharmaceutical companies are suppressing cures for things like unto maybe cancer or diabetes, where it is a multi-billion-dollar world industry moneymaker to keep people sick?
No. This is why. I've looked into it a little bit.
Okay.
As a pharmaceutical company, at least in the US, you can file a patent and you can get that patent for 10 years.
Mhm.
After 10 years, they only allow you for 10 years. It then goes out and that's where we get generic drugs.
Mm-hmm.
If you found a cure and you had 10 years
To be
you
the
could
only
make
drug manufacturer.
Trillions of dollars. So what I'm saying, if we're trying to talk about being motivated by money,
Mm-hmm.
but is there a motivation of money to hold things back and to only do medications that mask but not cure? Sure. But you also then have to take in the other thing that there's also trillions of dollars to be able to get rid of something completely
Yeah,
and
but
be the only.
longevity, if you never cure diabetes,
You think that diabetes is not something we get from medication. Diabetes is something we get from a lifestyle. And that lifestyle
not type 1 diabetes. It's not type 1 diabetes you are born with. And you are stuck with a medication.
I could be wrong.
Billionaires have gone in and bought up the patents for it and bought up the rights to it and have jacked the prices up.
I could be wrong. But I think pharmaceutical companies are making more money off diabetes medications from type 2 than type 1.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I mean, we'll just have to agree to disagree that there is so much money to be made in keeping people sick. Because
I'll at least give you this. Possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something like I would close a door and say, absolutely not. Do I believe? Sure. Possible? Yeah. Have I dug a ton into it? No. I'm trying to speak on something I'm not an expert.
It's just been interesting to me. We live somewhere near where one of these data centers is going up. And, if people aren't listening anymore, that's totally fine. But these data centers are going in local politicians who have been voted in by the people. And the people are showing up in the thousands, demanding that these local politicians say no to these data centers. But then you find out that these politicians bought up a bunch of land.
Oh, yeah, I think
to the data centers
constantly.
But that's what I'm saying is you have people that know I'm selling out thousands of people, potentially destroying communities and generations of money and income and resources in one area, depleting animals of their ability to live for home. I mean, everything at the core fiber of your being for you to sell a parcel of land to a data center company. And they don't lose sleep over it. Every single one of these. And our local Pima County, I think all of them voted for this data center to come in. And there was thousands of people across Republican, Democrat, Independents showing up saying, we have no water here. We have no resources. It's already hot here. All of these things, do not vote for this. And every single one of them in a room full of screaming constituents voted yes for it. And that is to me on a minor level of thousands of dollars, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in income in their hands. You're talking to me that the greed of the industries of oil and pharmaceutical and government and world agencies in the hundreds of billions of dollars to do the altruistic right thing. I just don't see it anymore.
I don't
know. Maybe that was supposed to be a lighthearted question. We ended up getting into sad things, but do good, people. Go out, be good, do good, be kind, give where you can, say a compliment. Smile at your neighbor, and make sure to join us here next week where Ben and I recap another episode of
Unsolved Mysteries.
Bye.